Rod doing Rod. What's up, y'all? I got a little cough. So I know I haven't done an episode in a while. It's because I've been doing most of my content on Instagram for my 19 followers. That's where most of my content has been going. I've been doing a daily series. It's actually from Monday through Friday. It's like Music Monday, Teaching Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Travel Thursday, and Fighting Friday, which is about my love of combat sports. But I've been doing that instead of doing a lot of podcasts. But sometimes I'll do a podcast that crosses over, so I'll use that podcast for the content on that day. So today is a Wellness Wednesday podcast instead of just doing my Instagram videos. So yeah, Rod doing Rod. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I keep forgetting to do that kind of thing like a real YouTuber. But anyway, I had some things on my mind regarding wellness. As you can see, I'm wearing my glasses, talking about wellness. I'm supposed to wear my glasses, but I haven't been wearing them. I'm only supposed to wear them for screens and reading, but I don't even remember to wear them most of the time for that. I have no problem. I like the glasses. I picked out glasses that I liked, and I'm okay with wearing them, but I only need them for real up close. I don't need them really right now. I'm just really doing it to give a different look, but I don't need them for anything else. I can see from far really, really well, and up close, I can kind of adjust my eyes, but when we get super close, then we start to get a little weird. So I do need them for super close. And yeah, it just happens when you get older, right? So if you need those glasses, wear those glasses. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, you know. It might change the look for some of you, and there's nothing wrong with playing with your look and just enjoying, you know, the aesthetics of your freaking face, you know. So some people might prefer contact lenses or LASIK or whatever. Me, this is all I need just for reading, up close reading, and screens. So I'm not going to do anything besides just get the glasses. I was thinking of getting like those transition glasses, so you can keep them on and you don't have to keep putting them back on when you need it for reading and stuff like that. And in Qatar, we wear sunglasses a lot, so I was thinking of doing that, but cross that bridge when I come to it, maybe one day. So one thing I was thinking about is coffee. Like I have this big cup of coffee, and it was bothering me, and I was like, why am I so bothered when I have like a really big cup of coffee? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's because I feel like it's vulgar or something, you know, this big old cup of coffee. And I'm like, why do I feel like that? Like I'll drink up to 4 cups of coffee a day, so and I'll drink 2 back to back. So 1 big cup of coffee shouldn't be a problem. But the 1 cup of coffee, you know, I was at trivia recently, and we were discussing Michelangelo's David. And I mean, who else is David, right? Michelangelo's David, because I have sophisticated friends and we have sophisticated conversation like that. Anyway, we were discussing Michelangelo's David, and we were talking about the size of the penis, pause, in the Michelangelo's David. And they were like, somebody was like, they did that because all of it was in perfect harmony and dimension, the way he sculpted the body, and this was to show, you know, the perfect dimensions and everything. And I was like, yes. And I also read that it's because in those times they felt that a large penis was, what's that word, garish and just brutish, and it was for the lower class, you know. And it just symbolized, you know, like a monstrosity, like a lower class man with a big vulgar penis. So they were like, you know, men of higher class would not have this big vulgar penis. And I'm like, yeah, I bet, right? I bet. So then we made jokes, you know, we're like, you must be of higher class, you must be of lower class, of course, right? Because we're sophisticated, right? So anyway, it's sort of like, I kind of feel like that about my cup of coffee. And I just compare my cup of coffee to penis, so I don't deserve to say pause. But anyway, yeah, it's like a big cup of coffee feels vulgar, And I'm the person who like gets annoyed with Europeans who are like, oh, why do Americans need an Americano, like a whole cup of coffee, when we have this little fucking shot of coffee? And I don't go all that way with it. Okay, I don't mind a little espresso shot, whatever like that. But when I'm somewhere and they give me that, I'm like, you need to give me 3 of those, put a little bit of water, and make that a normal cup. But big old cup of coffee feels unsophisticated, and I don't know. It just feels weird, So I need a Michelangelo's David sized cup of coffee. Anyway, so what do we want to talk about today? One of the things we want to talk about in wellness is the way people are when they are stressed, right? The way people are when they're stressed reveals what their limits are and what they will do, what their limits are compared to you and compared to others, and what they will do under pressure, and how easy it is for them to break and do something that is negative or something you don't like or something you don't respect. But I don't want to say that's who someone is, because that's not always true. It does reveal something about their limits, but when you're at work with people and they're snappy, or they're short, or they might just be super introverted, or they never really like to joke around or hang with people, sometimes they're just trying to get through the workday, and this isn't who they are outside of work. And I know we're at work a lot, so it feels like that's who they are, and when you think of that person, that's what you think. But maybe you've met with that colleague outside of work, or you've met with a colleague outside of work and you've seen that they were much different, most of the time for the better. And then you feel like, okay, this person is actually fun. I got a lot in common with this person. That's just how they are at work. Sometimes they'll tell you like that's how they are at work. And you just feel different about them, because when we're not stressed, I think we can get to the core of who we are. And we're not really under situations where we have to make a decision about like sacrificing someone else and being mean to them and stuff when we're not at work. So I was just speaking of trivia. I was at trivia with a former colleague, and she was someone who actually she had a pleasant attitude at work, and I liked her a lot. I thought she was really cool, but she was very no nonsense, very serious, and I didn't know another side of her. And the way we interacted, we didn't interact a whole lot, but the way we interacted, there was really no reason for me to see another side of her. I knew that she was struggling with some things at work, with well-being, and so she ended up leaving the job, as I did the following year. And so I went to trivia with her and some other colleagues recently, and her demeanor was so different. I actually saw her one time before this, and I only saw her for like a minute or two, and I just couldn't believe how different her energy was. Like I said, she was always cool, she was always pleasant, but this time, like, she just seemed so much more lively, full of life, and she's very funny and just light. And that seems like more like who she really is inside. And she even seems younger. She even looks different. Not that she looked bad, but she even looked younger. She's a little older than me. And it just made me think about how we're not meeting the true person a lot of the time at work. And sometimes you have to remember that and give people grace and be like, we're all in this situation and they wouldn't act like this otherwise. I was watching this TV show. Is it called Something People? Strange People? Something, I don't know. It has like Tina Fey, and it had Steve Carell, and he died, and it has a Coleman Domingo. And the married couple, the guy that Tina Fey was married to, she was saying how on vacation she liked how he was, and she didn't want to leave vacation because he wasn't miserable like he had been lately, and he was fun, and he was back to being the person that enjoyed hanging out with her and she enjoyed hanging out with. And a lot of married people can relate to this. And it just made me think, when you get an environment where your needs are met, you can really be you. Your needs are met, then you can be comfortable and secure. Now, that doesn't mean you are better when you have everything you want, because that certainly isn't true. There are billionaires and millionaires who are absolute jackasses because they can have everything they want. And giving someone everything they want is one of the worst tragedies, because then they start, a lot of these people that we encounter, they start fulfilling fantasies and start taking revenge and things like that for what happened in childhood and perceived slights and things like that. And now they have the ammunition to go after all of these people and things, and situations of people who don't deserve it. So that's different. But when people have needs that are being met, they feel like there's real friendship around. They feel like they can be themselves. They are fed. They are rested. They aren't constantly in a state of hyper awareness. Then you can see like what their real personality is. And not everyone has a great personality, but a lot of times you can see really what they're like. And I think that these are the people we meet all the time, but we don't meet that part of them. So I feel like, we have to remember that, and remember that those people aren't who we are, how we are seeing them every day. But also remember it for yourself. You may be giving off a version of you that is not what you normally would be like, or who you really want to be. A lot of us know that. So we want to change certain things in our life. You want to change your work environment because it influences you too much in a negative way, or being around certain people, friends and family and stuff like that, and they don't make you feel good about yourself. So you need to surround yourself in an environment as much as possible, because you can't always control that. I was in an environment where I knew I was coming home and not being nice enough to my family. I was just talking to another teacher 2 days ago, and she actually is the opposite. She seems very pleasant at work, and she has a smile, and she's very helpful. And I would have never imagined, she came to me and she was just like, this is just too much. And she said, I'm going home and my daughter is like, I really wish you could quit your job, because, I guess she comes home and she's not as nice as she wants to be, and she's snapping at her family and stuff like that. And sometimes you just have to figure that out and try to find as much balance as you can until you can change your situation. I've been in that situation, and I knew I had to stick it out, and I didn't know how long, but I was working on it. You still have to work on it. And I was like, I got to do this another year. And then I realized I had to do it another year, so you have to figure out that balance still. But if you can, or when you can, you change that environment completely, or you get away from those people if you can. Surround yourself with the type of energy that allows you to be who you really are, and not the person that has to respond in a state of hyper awareness and high cortisol all the time. So yeah, that's one of the things that was on my mind when it comes to wellness. Another thing that's on my mind when it comes to wellness is there are things that don't seem like wellness, that don't feel like wellness, but they are wellness. It's not your taking a bath, and it's not your long walks, or your meditation, or your yoga, or your therapy session, which I'm gonna have one today. I'm gonna go to my therapist. Make sure y'all try therapy, man. I don't like it. I can't stand it. I'm gonna do a whole thing on that one day. I can't stand it, but I'm at least gonna try it. Try it. Maybe it's not for you, but try it. If I feel like it's not for me, I'm not gonna keep going, but I'm gonna continue to try it. But anyway, the other wellness things, they're not those kinds of things. They're things that may not feel like wellness. For instance, maybe you need to take out your anger on someone who didn't do anything to you. Now, hear me out. What I mean by that is maybe you hold things in too much, right? And you know that releasing that is good for you, but maybe you don't for different reasons. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're timid. Maybe you've never done that. Maybe you're worried about the consequences, any of these things. But you know you need to get it out, right? You don't want to explode on the wrong person. Or do you? Pause. Or do you? Because maybe there's someone who deserves it, but they didn't do anything to you, and you're having a bad day. You're having one of those days, and you're like, you know what? You have those days when you're like, the next person who crosses me is going to get it for everybody. Make sure that person is someone who hasn't gotten it from anyone, but everyone knows they deserve it. You know, it's that asshole at work. It's that jerk family member. It's that neighbor, who pushes everyone's buttons or something like that. And everyone wishes someone would put them in their place. And they didn't do anything to you on that day. Maybe they didn't do anything to you ever, but you know they deserve it also. And you're having one of those days where you're like, what is it, like Falling Down by, in that Michael Douglas movie. And it's like, okay, somebody's going to get it. And that's the person you give it to. And they're like, what the like, I didn't do anything to you. And they didn't, but everybody else, so you're going to be a hero for it because everybody else knows they deserve it, but no one has flipped on them. So you're going to be a hero with everybody else, and you're going to get out that anger and that tension. And, just try not to feel bad about it because they deserved it, okay? What else? What else doesn't feel like wellness, but it is? Staying up too late. There's that whole thing about, like, it's almost like you're taking revenge on the day. you know that the next day you're going to be tired. But, you can do it one day here and there. And you know that during the day you had no time for yourself. Maybe it's the kids. Maybe it's the length of your job. Maybe it's recovering from it after work. And it takes until 9 o'clock for you to finally feel settled. And everyone's asleep. And now it's just you and the night hours. And you know that you should be in bed. But you're like, you know what? I'm just going to stay up as late as I want. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12:30. Watching Netflix, scrolling on the phone. Whatever. Sometimes you got to do that. Take your 3 or 4 hours at the end of the night. Stay up too late. Yes, you may be tired the next day, but maybe the fact that you gave yourself some time that night before is going to make you feel better about how you approach the day. Anyway, drink a big cup of coffee, a big unsophisticated cup of coffee, and you'll be all right. What else feels like wellness, but what else is wellness but doesn't quite feel like wellness or doesn't look like it? Oh, you know what else? Eating trash. Sometimes you just have to eat trash to even yourself out. If you're someone who never really does or tries to eat well or feels guilty when you do, because some people don't eat that well, but they convince themselves they do, like me. And then they eat badly and then they feel bad about it. But sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you need to eat something bad to just like say, this is going to give me that dopamine rush, and this is a safer dopamine rush than other things, than talking to people you shouldn't talk to, than losing it on someone who doesn't deserve it, than doing something risky and dangerous. Get yourself something. Not something that's going to screw up your stomach so badly that you're in the bathroom for hours or rot your teeth and you already have like, a bad toothache or something like that. Nothing like that, but just enough that satisfies that. It's a little past what you normally might eat, a little more rich, 2 pieces instead of 1, something like that. And, you eating that is kind of giving you that sense of peace and that sense of pleasure in a safe way. And you're not going to do it all the time. You're just going to do it here and there, and you're not going to feel guilty about it. That's one of those other things that you do that are that's wellness that doesn't quite seem like wellness. Yeah.